Hello, people. So, I wanted to touch on something that I think that is really, really important and something that we should all be aware of. And it's that internal conversation. Where are you living between your ears? How much time are you taking up on that inner voice, that inner critic? Isn't it interesting that, we can literally talk ourselves out of the things that we want to do before we've even embarked on the journey to do it. Because that inner voice, a lot of times, can be quite negative. And it's interesting that if you give it value, if you take its advice, 9 times out of 10, it will stop you doing things. It will stop you going out. It will stop you reaching out, making new friendships, building new relationships, starting a business, you name it. That inner voice will restrain you. And so it's really important to be aware, I think, of what conversation you're having internally, and then just getting really clear about how you take control of that. And it's almost like you have to turn around and say, listen, I hear what you're saying. That's not me. I hear what you're saying, but I'm going to go and do this thing. I hear what you're saying, but I'm going out. And I think that the more that you do that, the more that you listen to that kind of voice of negativity or fear, that you stand up to it and that you acknowledge it. You listen to the opposition, but you take action to go and do what you want to do, because days turns into weeks very, very quickly. Time passes so quickly, and before you know it, the things that you wanted to do, haven't been done, and a year has passed. A year ago, you decided that I really want to go and do this thing. I really want to commit to getting in shape. And a year later, you've still not committed to getting in shape. I really want to stop smoking. And a year later, you're still smoking. I really want to start this side business. I'm not keen on the word hustle, I've got to be honest, guys. If you're starting up a side hustle, side business, it's a business, right? So, it's important to treat it in that way, and that you focus on it professionally, and you do all the things you need to do to make it a success. But that inner voice will stop you doing any of that. It will stop you starting. I hear people asking me things or saying to me, hey, I really always wanted to do some acting, and not on a professional level. I just like to do something like locally. Well, there are lots of kind of local, amateur dramatic theatres, companies, that you can find, especially if you're in a city. If you're in urban areas, it's a little bit harder and you have to travel a little bit further, but it's generally something that you can get involved in. And it's interesting that, a year will pass and they've still not gone and done it. And if you don't go and do these things, how will you know what you really like if everything is just an idea? And, we move through time, through these decades of our lives. And I think what's really, really important is that we don't get to a point where, you look back with regret because of all these things that you didn't go after, because that inner voice, that inner critic stopped you. Outside of that, you've got external, distractions and negativity. You can have people in your life that, aren't supportive and, don't believe in the things that you want to do, or are too fearful, so they kind of put their fear on you, and that has you thinking, along with this inner voice, oh, maybe I shouldn't. You won't know unless you go and give it a go. And the adventure of going after things, the things that you will become exposed to as you embark on your journey to do whatever it is you want to do, lose weight, retrain for a new career, learn a new skill, start a side business. The list goes on and on and on. The way that it impacts you on a personal professional level, and the relationship with yourself is huge. I promise you, it's huge. I can only talk from an area of experience, my exposure and my expertise. And so if you don't know much about me, my background is I'm a school dropout. I trained in the martial arts from the age of 5. I competed in karate competitions and full contact karate and kickboxing. I won a whole bunch of titles. I was also a kind of closet creative for a while, but then I started to do it more externally in terms of I was writing poems, stories, songs, and then I started to actually take action and stop listening to that voice in my head. And I went out and got involved in bands, and I have music out there. You can find me on things like iTunes and Spotify, etc. And outside of being, a martial artist, a fighter, a singer-songwriter, a writer, I became a professional actor. I've worked in numerous projects, from indie films right through to studio productions. And again, you can find that all out by just Googling my name. And I've been a business owner, an investor in property. And so I think I carry a certain wealth of experience. I also opened the most exclusive health club in London. It's called Kick's Gym. It's now Kick's Life. Many moons ago, I ran around for about 4 or 5 years trying to find a backer to do that. And I'll do a video if you want on that kind of journey of opening the most exclusive health club in London. It's a place, Kick's Gym in Draycott Avenue, still in operation today, still there. It was a £13 million project. And that was a very interesting journey, and I learned a lot about a very steep learning curve of business through that period. And I worked with some of the most influential and famous people on the planet, either as a trainer, a coach, so I feel like I've got this collective kind of tapestry of experience that makes sense to me. And when I bring it together, I'm able to cover a lot of different dimensions of, life. And that doesn't include family life either. I'm not even touching on family life. I'm just talking about professional experience and exposure, etc. So I feel that when I speak from a place of authority, and I feel like I can add some value to you out there. But I want to start and go back to what this was all about, and that is the inner voice, the inner critic. That's something to get really clear about, controlling and not being controlled by it. So I don't want to waffle on for too long, but it's really important to become aware of how much time that's taking up, how many opportunities that's stopping you from exploring, and that you find yourself in a position where you are aware of it, but you don't let it hold you back. That great saying, fear, false evidence appearing real. Is this voice, false evidence appearing real? Because if you allow it to restrain you, it becomes a reality, right? And your reality is through whatever it is, fear of failure or even fear of success, stops you going on to do and explore and experience all the things that you would want to do. And as I said, we move through these decades of our life. We don't want to get to the point where A, we're too old to do some of these things, and B, more importantly, that you sit there in regret thinking, if only. So if I can encourage you to do anything right now, is to become aware of that voice, start to put it in check, and make sure that you're the boss, not that internal voice. Turn around to that voice and say, yeah, I hear you, but I'm going out. I'm going to meet this person. I'm going to go and see this film. I'm going to go and try that club. I'm going to go and explore that opportunity to learn something new. And you can just be quiet and be a spectator, as opposed to you being a spectator in your life, So my people, before I waffle on anymore, I hope there is some wonderful value in this to you, and I hope you have a beautiful day, a beautiful week, and take action. Turn off that inner critic and focus on the things that you want to do. And I'll see you on the next one.